I've known this guest since high school, and today, she's a boss lady. How did she go from a thriving career on Broadway and performing all over the world to becoming a successful, full-time vintage curator? Founder of Lucid Ladybug and vintage fashionista, Meghan Kennedy is here.
For the world of theater and live performance, there was no jobs. Everything overnight disappeared.
Meghan's story is a powerful reminder that even the moments that seem out of alignment can be intentional, preparing us for where God may be leading us next.
Sometimes traumatic things are what shake us and wake us. God was gifting me so many tools and knowledge for what was to come.
Her creativity has opened doors to incredible new opportunities. And today, she's sharing how life's unexpected pivots can sometimes lead you straight to your purpose. Meghan, welcome to Heal the Girl. I am so happy you're here. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. I'm seriously so honored and filled with joy to be here with you today.
Likewise. A little before we started recording, we were kind of going down memory lane a little bit and reminiscing. We met back in 2009 and we're still connected, which is such a blessing.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think it's important that they know that we met through the world of theater and music, and that we're both South Jersey natives, proud to be from Winslow Township. That's where we met in high school, and just really both have supported each other through our journeys over the past decade. And I know that connection is certainly through the love of theater and music, and also our foundation in our faith.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. We met in theater in high school doing the play Fiddler on the Roof, and you played my mom. Just thank you for your yes. You have such a beautiful story, and I can't wait to unpack that. What we get to do on Heal the Girl is take a walk in your shoes, not only by hearing your story, but also highlighting a pair of shoes that hold significance to your story, or a pair of shoes that you just happen to love. And we get to take a glimpse of your journey in those shoes. So Meghan, show us your shoes, girl.
All right, I'm so excited to show my vintage cheetah boots. So these are just, I feel like growing up as a girl, I always was playing in my mom's closet and trying on her shoes, and I had my own dress-up box. And these cheetah boots just make me feel like a superstar. I just feel so grounded in them because they are supportive, as you can see, but they're also so fun. They pair so fabulous with my vintage collection. And fun fact, I still go to the shoe cobbler at the Berlin Farmers Market in South Jersey. He takes care of all of my vintage shoes.
Oh, that's so cool. And I love them. I like the cheetah print. I think they're so sassy, and they can go with a lot of different outfits. They play into the dressy, or if you want to go casual with it. Very nice.
They're a good find. Truly my favorite.
So let's talk about that. Vintage style, vintage finds. You are the woman behind Lucid Ladybug. Actually, tell us about the name of the brand.
Yeah, of course. So ladybugs have always been really special in our family. Growing up, we would just kind of always feel like it was a little wink from God, or just a moment to kind of be present and to remember those who have passed before us. So something really special that my mom, my sister, and I all share. And our logo, the ladybug, is actually a tattoo that my sister and I have. So it started with that. And then lucid means to be filled with light, to be in the present. And that is so much of the heart of my business, is to just spark conscious conversations. And that means being in the present moment with someone else, whether that's family, friends, a stranger. That has really just been the heart of everything that we do, is to encourage people to be present in the moment that is right before them.
So appropriate, because we need to be more present in life, right? Everything is always just going so fast, it feels like, and to just stop and smell the roses is very important. So tell us about your journey with Lucid Ladybug. I know you started off in Broadway. You ended up having to pivot. So take us back to the Broadway days, and how did we get to Lucid Ladybug.
It really is such a journey. So my background is in Broadway and theater. I studied dance and musical theater at Rider University in New Jersey, and then moved to New York City shortly after and had such an amazing and blessed career in my 20s. I traveled all over the world. I lived on a cruise ship for Disney Cruise Line. I was a part of the Broadway production of Sister Act over in Asia. And just God really blessed and protected me during that journey. And I really, truly had so many dreams come to life through that experience. Wonderful people that I've met. I have friends all over the world now, and just so many amazing connections through that journey. And then in 2020, when COVID came, and our world just really took a big pause. For me, that was a really huge pause. And of course, this impacted all different industries, but for the world of theater and live performance, there was no jobs. Everything overnight disappeared. When you're in theater, you work contract to contract, and all of my contracts that I had lined up disappeared. And I was so lost, so heartbroken. Felt like I was almost mourning what my life was, and really struggling to find what the next step was, how I should channel my creativity. And so I got a corporate job and played corporate Barbie for a little bit. And I was able to do it and adapt and adjust, but my heart was just really still seeking a creative outlet. And so I started Lucid Ladybug out of my closet in 2020. I started an Instagram account, and I would sell 3 vintage treasures a week online. I would share the history, and it kind of gained traction just from me authentically sharing things that I loved. Vintage and secondhand is how I've always really styled. And so I just kind of started authentically sharing, what we were putting around our house, what we were buying at markets. And it sort of snowballed from there.
How cool. It almost just kind of landed in your lap, so to speak. But isn't that just like God? Like he just knows the timing and everything, and he just blessed it to come to fruition that way. If you don't mind sharing, Megan, your story about how you feel like God got your attention. How did he do that? What happened?
Yeah, so I feel like God has really worked in me and through me over the past 5 years. And it started really with the shock of losing my career and really struggling with my identity, who I was without the world of theater, entering into a new chapter in the world of business, and kind of
Mhm.
almost quickly becoming absorbed with a new focus. And I just kind of felt like God kept working on me, and pushing me in different ways, and really encouraging me to allow that release, right? That release of control. And I think that has been so much of the heart of my journey, is always wanting, to control the outcome of things, and knowing that that is not how God works. We have to release and allow his plan to usher us forward. And
Yes.
unfortunately, a year and a half ago, I was involved in a really scary and traumatic vehicle accident that really was life threatening. And in that moment, I knew that God had saved me in that moment. And for me, that was truly a spiritual wake-up call for me, of this is no longer sitting in the back seat. This is no longer just a little piece of me. This needs to be at the forefront, is my faith, and is God's love that has always blessed me and shown through me. But just really knowing the honor and the privilege of what that is and what that means, and really truly releasing and allowing God to orchestrate my steps and allow his
Yeah.
timeline to be what I want to be in love with, not, my aspirations and what I want, but what God wants for me and through me. And so, unfortunately, sometimes traumatic things are what shake us and wake us. And for me, that was truly a wake-up call of where I wanted to pivot my energy.
Very touching story. I'm sorry to hear about the traumatic accident, but I'm thankful for what it birthed in you. And I believe you said this earlier that our faith has definitely connected us. And I think it even connected us in the most subtle ways back in 2009. You had such a warmth, and I felt so comforted around you. And I believe that light was shining in you even then. So to see it now and you're just being even more bold about your faith is beautiful to see. And people definitely need to hear about the Lord. So that's beautiful that you're able to share that so openly.
Thank you. And I want to add too that, there was a lot of health complications post-accident that was very, physically demanding, and I there was a lot that I needed assistance with, and God really, really is the great healer, and I got to witness that within my own body, and my family got to witness that, my close friends, and I am so grateful for the to the great healer, but also to my support system. I know that really, really helped me get over this physical hump. So yeah, I'm feeling really great, and just truly so blessed that God saved my life once and then once again.
The great healer. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, who would know that you went through something so traumatic?
I think that's a reminder too, that everyone is walking their own invisible path, and you don't know what people are carrying, whether it be physical, mental, situational, everyone is carrying their own sort of burden, and that's where, we find the grace to extend that to others because we too have our own stories. But it's
Yes.
what you do with it.
Exactly. It's how you use it. And I love the way that the Lord is using you. And I love to unpack even more so your heart for your brand and the vintage inspiration. As you're wearing some vintage apparel right now. You can show us what you have on. I love the ensemble here.
Thank you. So I, of course, love to wear a lot of vintage. It's what I style with. It's what we sell in our shop. So today I'm wearing a really cool vintage jumpsuit. I would say this is probably close to 1980s, with some fun pearl details. And then I'm always rocking some fun vintage mix of jewelry. I got some fun earrings in. The shoes I showed you are vintage. So every day a little bit of fun. But what's great about, the way that I style the vintage too is to show it in a way that you can pair vintage with modern pieces. So I love to also share that a lot on my socials of kind of, here's what I'm buying in store and then how I'm pairing it with fun things that I can find.
A little mix and match, and it just kind of comes together so beautifully. But I honestly feel like anyone who has, if you're able to style, and I just feel like that's just a gift, or somebody or something or someone inspired it. Can you tell me where that came from? Was it always just in you? Was it your mom, or I think you said your was it your grandmother?
Yeah, so, well, my mom's nickname at work was always Matchy Matchy because she always matchy matchy with her, top would match her vest, would match the pants, would match the
Uh,
bracelet. My mom has always been a fashionista, and so a lot of my inspiration comes from her. But I've always just also been a very visual person. I walk into a space, and automatically my brain just starts to rearrange where I'd want the furniture or how I'd hang artwork. I walk into a store, and I don't just see the fabric hanging on the rack. I kind of visualize, well, what would that look like on my shape or on a different shape? And so I think it's always just kind of innately been in me. But I have to say, that brief hiatus that I took, leaving theater and then stepping into the corporate world, that is what truly gave me the confidence to know that the way that my creative brain works is so special. And I didn't realize that, not everybody thinks that way or can see things in that way. So I really credit kind of stepping away from the creative world for me to gain such confidence to know like, yeah, this you can do this.
so what exactly were you doing in the corporate world when you took that break from Broadway and theater?
I had two different jobs in that stint, and one I was doing like copywriting and like customer communication for a small startup, and then I
Okay.
transitioned to a much larger startup where I was an account manager. And actually that job was pretty neat, as well. Neat. It sucked my soul a little bit, but I worked with
Mm-hmm.
other small business owners. So as an account manager, I was helping onboard these small businesses to our software that we were using. But it gave me more of a glimpse into the life of being being an entrepreneur and being a small business owner. And I credit that
Mhm.
to, kind of giving me that confidence to say, okay, you could do this too.
There are so many pieces that lead you to where you're going in life, and I think that's really cool how that happened.
In the moment, you don't always understand why you're going through it or why it's happening. And I felt that way with those jobs. Like it didn't feel like my purpose, it didn't feel in alignment. But God was gifting me so many tools and knowledge for what was to come.
Exactly. Tell us about how you're sparking conscious conversations.
So, of course, at the heart of everything is just being present with one another. And a lot of what we do and what we sell with Lucid Ladybug involves the tabletop and meeting around the table and gathering around the table. And so much of what we do is, fun and beautiful tablescapes, but what is that for? And that is to usher in a moment of presence with whoever you're gathering with around your table. And then, of course, the other caveat to that is styling vintage is a sustainable way to elevate your celebration, elevate your wedding, elevate your home without the environmental impact. So, of course, we see so much of glassware and trash and production that is not making it to the all the way to the recycling bin, or is just ending up in our landfills, in our oceans. So the heart of my mission as well is to really encourage the younger generations to claim those treasures back and to find joy and inspiration through these pieces. And that could be starting at your grandmother's house. There might be some treasures there that she might not want, or maybe no, the family doesn't know what to do with it. And I really just want to encourage the younger generations to hold on to those treasures because they are not just physical things. They also hold such a lineage of your family and of all those moments and those conversations that sparked around the table, whether it be at the holidays or special celebrations. So that, of course, is a big piece of the puzzle too.
I love that tagline, sparking conscious conversations, because yeah, I mean at the table there's a lot of conversation, making those connections are it's so important and meaningful. And how do you go about finding these treasures? I think that is so cool that there's so many different places like the flea markets and the estate sales, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that. Do you pick a special day to do it or you just kind of do it randomly? How does that work?
Yeah, so I like to call it treasure hunting. And there's a couple, different ways that we go about it. So, of
Yeah.
course, whenever I'm, kind of out and about, I might stumble into a thrift store or find a flea market. In the spring and the summer, we love to hit up lots of yard sales, outdoor markets. But since I started this business in 2020, people now know what I do. So I actually have clients that come directly to me to purchase, which is really amazing because I get access to exclusive pieces, very rare vintage finds and sets that you might not be able to find in a thrift store. So that has been such a blessing is that I kind of get to do some direct buying and selling in that way. And then of course it's also project driven. So depending on what my clients' needs are for the month, for the year, for the upcoming events, I kind of plan my sourcing around that. And then I also travel to source. So we'll go to Pennsylvania, we'll go down to Maryland, we'll go to upstate New York, we'll kind of jump around on the coast and visit different places. And I always, have a treasure hunting list. So I try to stay focused on what it is I'm actually looking for. But
Okay.
in the world of treasure hunting and thrifting and vintage, when you see something and it's special, you have to just go for it. So I
Yeah.
do have quite an inventory of really wonderful pieces that we kind of keep revolving through our collections that we sell online, and then also that we use as rentals to enhance for parties, weddings, and events.
Amazing. I love the many different aspects as well as the selling and then also helping with the events. Do you have like an inventory for like, is it for smaller weddings or would you say you have an inventory for huge weddings? Like, What does that look like?
So our collection has grown over the past few years as we did kind of pivot and transition more into weddings, which has been so
Mhm.
exciting. I was a bride in 2023 and incorporated a lot of vintage heirlooms and pieces into our day. And then I had brides starting to reach out saying, "Hey, we want this too." So once again, I just feel like God kind of ushered and opened up the store. So
Yes.
any brides or or couples that we work with, they have access to our full vintage collection, and we do have coupe glasses and plates up to about 200 guests right now, but can always expand if the project requires it. But yeah, I've got quite the collection of the vintage coupe glasses and the plates and the dessert plates in particular. And we have a really large brass candlestick collection that the couples like to use to decorate. And then, any of those sort of details that we can incorporate in an upcycled way, whether it's renting, we have a big frame collection, signs, vintage mirrors, all those beautiful enhancements for weddings, without, that sort of wasteful end up in the garbage at the end of the night. We bring it in, we style it, and then at the end of the night, we come and we pack it all up and we take it away. So.
The consciousness about being able to reuse and sustainability, I think that's very important. And for brides, I mean, we both got married. Congratulations, you said 2023. It's amazing. Yeah, it's like there's so many details that go into the wedding, and it's great if you can reuse the items or if somebody else can use them instead of just kind of tossing them out afterwards, because it's a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. And, I really try to encourage my couples too. If you are going to purchase things for the day, you want it to be things that you're going to use again. What are you going to do with a hundred of the same lanterns? Like, unless you have a really long driveway, I don't know what you're doing with those. So we like to offer
Yeah.
options for them to rent things. And then also I call it, a custom treasure hunt. So if a client is looking for, they want this very specific style bird cage, for their wedding envelopes and gifts, or they're looking for, a special memento to give to their partner on the day. Those are all sort of fun little shopping things that I get to do for my clients.
So cool. Listeners, viewers, make sure you visit the website. We're going to make sure we plug all that information at the very end. But oh my goodness, you're amazing, girl. Do you have a team that works with you, or do you feel like are you the main one who's doing all of this treasure hunting?
Yeah, I would say I'm kind of a solo entrepreneur, although I have to give credit to my mom, my trusty mom, who has always been such a rock and an assistant for me in all my
Mm-hmm.
journeys of jobs, but she also has a great eye. So she'll, kind of shop for me a little bit. And it's funny, actually, I do have kind of a group of, I call them like my little birdies, like a couple of my girls, a couple of my aunts, and they also love to thrift. So they'll randomly send me pictures and say, "Hey, does Lucid Ladybug need this?" So I do have some, some support around me. But
You
as far
do.
as the day-to-day execution, it really is me. I hope and pray, to expand to a bigger team. Maybe in this year will be the year that happens. And certainly as the events get larger, then
Mhm.
yeah, extra hands, mainly physically to
Sure.
carry the things.
For sure. And I pray that that happens, very soon for you, that this will continue to grow and expand and you'll have a full team and all of those things, whatever you need. And it's a blessing that you do have eyes looking out for you because there's just so much to see. And your wedding definitely stood out. It made it into, what was it, the
Philadelphia Magazine. Yep.
Philadelphia magazine. Yeah, that's amazing. And your style and your husband even, like I'm gonna make sure I put some pictures in here. It was just absolutely beautiful. What if something this small could change someone's life? Heal the Girl impact cards are created to inspire and encourage girls and women everywhere at any time. Just keep them on hand, and when the moment comes, you can pass one along. Maybe it's the young girl struggling to discover who she is, or the devoted mother, your cashier, a waitress, everyday people in your life. There's an impact card for any moment. Choose a card to give and make someone's day. Suddenly, she feels seen and knows she's not alone. This is healing in your hands. Visit healthegirl.com to get your cards today. And when you receive a card from someone, take a photo with or of it and share how it impacted you on Instagram. Use hashtag HealTheGirlImpact so we can see the many places these cards are reaching. Let's go global and heal the girl around the world. You also were a part of New York's Fashion Week, was it?
Yeah, so I've been a part of New York Bridal Fashion Week for the past year. Last spring was my first market, and then I was invited again this fall, which has been so incredible to get a firsthand look at the designs of what's upcoming. And really, my favorite part of New York Bridal Fashion Week is talking with the designers because they're creatives at the heart of what they're sharing at market. It is their big project on display, and I just love connecting with them and I love hearing their stories. So I'm always like,
Mm-hmm.
what inspired this, the fabric or the silhouette? And it's also just such a great networking opportunity to, meet other like-minded creatives in the space.
For sure. And what exactly was Lucid Ladybug doing for Fashion Week? Were you also doing because I know you do photography as well. So what was your role?
Yeah, so I, of course, do photography, which we all include that with some of our vintage setups and rentals, and then content creation is a big part of what I do, and I'm so blessed to get invited to come to places and events, and kind of do my own version of coverage for these events. So I was invited to come and shoot content for a handful of the designers, one of them being Haley Page, which was her big resurgence back into the bridal market. She's got a really awesome story herself. So I received a personal invite to go and sit front row at her runway show and to
Wow.
take photos and videos. And so again, just feeling so much, gratitude for these opportunities that place me in spaces where I feel like I can just thrive and be myself, and share, my love and really my lens, right? Like when I get invited to do this, it's sharing my point of view of these experiences, and that just feels just like such a blessing.
It is, and I enjoy watching and seeing what you're doing. I think I get to live vicariously through your content. It's like, oh, she's over here in New York. Oh, she's at the bridal show. This is so exciting and fun. I love that for you.
The heart of why I share and why I share so openly is never to boast. It's never, it truly is to inspire others. I want especially young women to know that there is no limit to your dreams, to your goals, to what you want to achieve. I literally wrote down on my vision board last year that I wanted to go to New York Bridal Fashion Week. There's a couple things that have happened this year that have been so amazing, and that was something that was on my list, and I just started researching and figuring out how to kind of make that happen and what list I needed to get on. But, just removing that limit, right? That cap of, well, oh, I couldn't, or I could never
Mhm.
travel there, or someone like me could never do X, Y, and Z. And just really removing that narrative and knowing that if you put your mind and your heart and your soul into something, that you really can do it and achieve it.
You're truly an example of that, and it's an amazing journey that you have. What would you say your dream accomplishment would be? Is there anything specific that you just really want to do, either with Lucid Ladybug, outside of that? Are you still into theater? What would you say? And
Oh my,
dance and music?
yeah. It's so, that is such a specific question, and I feel like my dreams have just continued to change. And I've stepped away from theater, although I have started singing again at church. I lead on our worship team at church, which has been so amazing. I could talk all day about the team that I serve with. They are so wonderful. But I think just with what my dream is for this brand and for this business, I think really is kind of expanding on what I just said about inspiring others to chase life, to live their life, I think there are so many distractions and so many things in our world to just divide us, to diminish us, to dull our light, to dull our senses. And I just want my work and what I share authentically with the world to inspire the complete opposite. I really just want to inspire people to chase life and to be present in whatever they're doing.
And I think you're on the right path, Megan. I'm definitely inspired. I love how God just puts multiple things in us to use and they just blossom and grow if you don't let fear hold you back, right?
That is one of the stickies that I always keep around me. And it says, fear is not fruitful because fear is what chokes, it chokes the roots. It's what holds you back. And so I really try to push past that fear. And also, what you kind of alluded to is that I have no box. I've broken out of a standard box. And, people will say, oh, well, what is it that you do? And it's like, well, I can't put it into one word because I'm able to use my creative skill set in so many different ways. And I know that that is all because of God's alignment with my life and with aligning the steps and with my confidence to say, okay, God, what's next? And to trust in that process. And I haven't always had that firm, mindset and faith. And so I really do credit these past few years for just really solidifying that. And yeah, every day I wake up just excited for whatever adventure, whatever task, whatever client, whatever, journey I've got for the day. And we know too that that comes from a lot of discipline too.
Discipline is huge, especially in entrepreneurship. And I really appreciate what you said about fear not being fruitful. If you don't mind just speaking to that even more so, because I can definitely relate, even being a believer and just constantly trying to remind myself of scripture and be anxious for nothing and understanding that the Lord is with me through it all. But I've still battled with that anxiety. So, what are some of the things that you've incorporated to kind of help you take that leap?
Absolutely. And this is, it's something that you have to a muscle almost that you have to flex to remind yourself like your body is safe, you're in a safe space. But one of the tools that I use, something that my mom taught me, is you have to talk it all the way through the end. And so she would say to me, "What's the worst thing that could happen?" And then I'd have to talk it out through the end. Well, if I went for the interview and I fumbled my words, then I might not get the job. And then they might think, you kind of go through, or if I go on that trip, then this might happen, or this might not happen, or, just kind of talking through the full thread and vocalizing it out loud, vocalizing your fears. It's okay to have, that sort of energy, but it's what you do with it. So talking it through the end. I'm also a really, really big journaler and writer. I think it's so powerful and important to write your dreams out, but also to write your fears out. Write your fears. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with God. Sometimes I write and then I rip it up and I throw it away. And sometimes
Yeah.
I let it sit in the journal. And then my other tip is to get physical. You have to physically get the energy moving and out of your body. So sometimes if I'm feeling anxious or scared or nervous, I say, okay, we're going to step away from the situation and we're going to go dance it out in the kitchen, or we're going to go. I love to walk. I'm an avid walker with my dog. I go and I call it cut the cord. So you've got to get out of your head, kind of cut that thought cord, get physically in your body, and then revisit the thought and see how it feels. And then, I think too, as women, our bodies are so amazing and so, so incredible. But we also view every day is different for us. So sometimes you have to give yourself that grace too of knowing, kind of where you are in the month. That impacts your mindset, that impacts, your physical body. And so always, always offering grace to yourself too, to know, it's okay to feel these things, but what am I going to do with it? Yeah.
And beautifully said. And I love the dancing it out in the kitchen.
We are big kitchen dancers. That my husband as well. We are we always are playing some sort of vinyl set off of YouTube, usually oldies or international, and we
Love
dance
it.
it. Yeah.
My husband and I do too.
I love it.
It's such a sweet moment and a mental escape, you know? I also wanted to ask you this because I was reading up and I saw it in one of the articles. Can you tell us who Mom Mop is?
So Mum Up, that Mum Up Florence, or her nickname was Flo Baby, is my dad's mom. So that was my grandmother on my dad's side growing up, and she was an artist, a full-blown artist. She, went to art school in the 50s when my dad and his siblings were in elementary and middle school. She went back to school in the 50s, and so she did. Woodworking and clay pieces. And in her later years, she did a lot of jewelry, designing and styling, and just feel so, blessed to grow up in an environment, in a household, and a family that really honored the arts, loved the arts. And I also just think it is so empowering to know that my grandmother, was breaking barriers in the 40s and 50s and, chasing her own dreams and goals and pursuing a career, that is society would say, well, that's not lucrative, or you should be home raising your children. And here she was, breaking down barriers and chasing her own dreams. And she traveled a lot too, which inspired her art. And, up until her dying day, she was still creating, even when she couldn't form the beads anymore, she was still beading, with bigger beads. And
Mhm.
so I find a lot of inspiration from her as well.
I see where you get it from. You have such an amazing mother, and then you have your grandmother, and you have just so much support and love surrounding you. And it shows in everything that you do. Even your Wix collaboration. I saw that as well.
Thank you. I know I was like so honored and excited to work with them. And they had me come into New York a few months ago for like a work session, and everybody from Wix like knew me and knew my website. And I was like, what? Like this is so crazy. And then I worked with a coach over the holidays, which helped me ramp up for, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that kind of stuff. And so that's also such a blessing of being an entrepreneur is you are always learning. It is just like continued education at all
Yes,
times. Um,
yes.
but I thrive in that. So I feel grateful for that too, that it is always kind of changing and evolving, but just learning to go with it and to have fun.
Where can everyone find you, Megan, and Lucid Ladybug?
Yes, so you can visit our website, lucidladybug.com, which has our full e-commerce online shop. We also have a blog, so I put out monthly blog publications, and you can sign up for our email newsletter right on the website. And then if you are on social media, then you can certainly give us a follow at lucid.ladybug, and that's on Instagram. We are on TikTok, we are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, and we are on X as well. And if you want to stay connected, you can also shoot me a email, info@lucidladybug.com. Would love to spark the conversation with you.
So, listeners and viewers, make sure you do that. And Megan, thank you so, so much for just being a light and for sharing your story with us today. Truly inspiring, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly been an honor to be connected with you and to share my story with your community. I really am just super grateful. So thank you.